In 1969, Colley was living penniless, begging on the streets of London. Returning home to Belfast, he secured his first sales job as a Pepsi-Cola route salesman. He did well in that job and progressed, but then he was offered a sales role with a startup. Unfortunately, Colley had a big problem with alcohol at that time and had to enter recovery in 1974. But since then, he's been clean and sober. As the startup grew, he was promoted to the role of sales and marketing manager, overseeing 15 outside and 4 inside salespeople. Colley found that he really enjoyed training and coaching the sales team. And by the late 80s, he set himself a goal of starting his own sales training company. He finally took that plunge in July of 1996 and has since gone on to train salespeople and sales leaders all over the world. Colley has been recognized by his peers as one of the top 10 sales trainers in the UK. After all these years, he's still delivering sales training and is now building his soon-to-be-launched online sales academy. Welcome to the show, Colley.
Thank you for inviting me, Michael. Great to be here. Thank you.
Oh, it's a real pleasure to have you here, Colley, because your career is long and illustrious, and you've learned so much that I know we could talk for hours. So let me go ahead and begin, Colley, by tapping into what you think about how sales has changed since you began.
Yeah, there's been a major change with the internet. Although there's a lot of figures bandied about how much research people do and what people buy. One of the things that I have discovered, the transactional sale is very much now on the internet, where people are selling product. It's very much internet-based. Although when you come down to the much more complex sale, for instance, if it's software, or today I was working with a company was selling an intricate bit of equipment, and it always needs to have either that face-to-face or, since the last 2 years, the Zoom sales. Now, one of the things that's changed has been the Zoom sales. And I always make the remark as well is there's a lot more upside to sales today than there was when I started. And when I started with that startup company, I was handed the yellow pages and a bunch of brochures and told, go for it, Colley. And that was it. But today, sales has got that bit more sophisticated. But I've simplified selling down to, people say to me, what is selling? And I define selling as a conversation with a purpose. Now, interesting, I was with a company today, and we have to be very careful because now you get the objection, well, I've had to look at for a website. If we need it, we'll come back to you. So it's that sort of a, how do you overcome? That's a new objection which does come up. Or we've got your email. If we need you, we'll contact you. So that's one of the concerns or objections now that needs to be overcome. The company that I was with today, I'm working with them all this month and up till Christmas. One of the things I said to them is, you've got too much information on your website. You're not, what you should think about your website is create curiosity. Make people say, I want to learn more, instead of giving them the whole 9 yards and throwing everything at them, including the kitchen sink, on their website. And they have taken my advice, and they're looking at downscaling their website, where it's just creating curiosity and just demonstrating value, because their website can create objections. And that was one of the first things I found out. But I think actually selling has improved, because I think salespeople have become more professional, and now it's more about being a consultant and being a trusted servant. Actually, I think the internet has advanced us when we look at things like LinkedIn, we look at Facebook, and it's much easier to build relationships. Although I do like to debunk the myth, there's no such thing as social selling. We can build an interaction we can build a relationship, but we've got to take that conversation offline.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Colley. As sophisticated as we become with the use of all kinds of additional software to support the salesperson and provide them with more information than they've ever had before, it still comes down to your ability to have a conversation in a consultative fashion and be that trusted servant.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So then my next question is around closing, right? There's this famous movie called Glengarry Glen Ross. And in the movie, the sales manager says to one of the salespeople, coffee is for closers.
Yeah.
Now, I know that sales managers still look for people who can close the sale. But what are your thoughts about this emphasis on closing the sale with salespeople?
Yeah, because well, Alec Baldwin says in that movie, A, B, C, always be closing.
Right.
Now, interesting. Yeah. Now, interesting. When I first started my sales training company, everybody said to me, "Oh, can you come in and teach our salespeople how to close?" And I said, "Fine." And then I would do a pre-sales review, talk to their salespeople, and the first question I would ask: "How many sales are you opening?" And one of the things I said, the problem with sales is not closing the sales. The problem is opening the sale. And that's what I was talking about this morning. We were doing follow-up calls to emails, and it was getting that opening right to create that curiosity to be able to take it to the next stage. Now, one of the things that I suggest is that if you open the sale properly and you lead it through and you uncover the needs, and needs has got to be turned into want, because nobody buys what they need, they always buy what they want. So you got to look at that. And then when I actually set up 5 requisites that you need, are they committed? Have you a solution to their problem? Have you expressed value in what they're offering? Have you shown a return investment? And only until you reach that stage can you close the sale. And I teach one simple closing question. And I actually learned it from a guy who was actually my best salesman in the sales team. And it was the one question he asked all the time. And at the end of the conversation, he would actually simply say this: "Michael, from what you've heard so far, do you need to ask me any other questions? Or are you happy to go ahead?" And then he would shut up. And if you would say to him, "Well, sorry, I'm not sure about," and they'll say, "Okay, yeah, let me cover it. Does that answer your question now?" And if the guy goes, "Yes," so we're okay to go ahead. The other guy who was one of my best sales, and that team where that guy owned the team, we recruited this guy, and I was doing some field training with Jim. And Jim said this to a customer, and I thought, my goodness, they're going to throw us out of his office. We're going to get thrown out of here on our backside when Jim asked the question. And what Jim said to him, "Look, Michael, I don't really want to waste your time. And I'm sure, Michael, knowing you don't want to waste my time. But are you serious about doing something about this?" Now, the first time I heard Jim say that, I thought, my goodness, what can I do? But the guy goes, no, I'm serious. Well, then we need to look how we can go ahead. And it's one of the things about selling. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's using your tone of voice. But particularly that I did some work for Belfast Council for some of the traders. And I taught them it's more important to open the sale than worry about the close.
That's very good advice, Kali, because I agree with you that it's not about what you do at the end. The end should take care of itself if you've done everything right leading up to that point.
Yeah, exactly. No.
So speaking about what you do in the beginning, rapport with the prospect is usually important to the establishment of trust and having the other person feel like they'd like to do business with you. What are your favorite ways to establish rapport with a prospect?
Again, because of LinkedIn and because of Facebook, then we can do some research. And I'll give you an example of rapport, of how I do the rapport, which was just this week. Now, it was a client of mine, and we haven't done business for 3 years. And I actually saw on Facebook his 2 children dressed up for Halloween. Mm-hmm. And I saw that last week. And I looked at his oldest boy, and I actually remembered that I was in his office, and he actually said to me, Collie, I may have to leave early because my wife's expecting our first baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, fine. And I looked at, and his first baby's now 9 years old. So I picked up the phone. I phoned the guy up, and I said, Jerome, I didn't realize your eldest son's now 9. I said, I remember the day you were expecting him. And he said, yes, Collie, I told you I have to leave early. He remembered it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that built a rapport because I remembered. He then went in to say, I'm glad you phoned me, Collie, because your name comes up most days in our business because we say to ourselves, and these people sell a very complex app for field engineers. And he said, every day your name comes up in our business because we say to our salespeople, how would Collie Graham tell you to handle that? And he said, and then the other thing he says, and we need you in January to do some retraining. And if I haven't phoned you the first week in January, you phone me. And that was just simply that I was building rapport. And the other thing was, I actually phoned him. I wasn't particularly looking for business. I was phoning him because one of the things that all my key clients, the people that I've been working with for a number of years, are now my personal friends. My oldest client, I've been to 3 of his children's weddings.
Mm.
He's now got grandchildren, and we would talk most weeks on the phone. So it's building, becoming friends, making them your friend. You know, and one of the things that I say, when you're making a people a friend, you want your friend to have the best. You want to help your friend to succeed. And that's about building rapport. Treat everybody as your friend and live life with constant thought of other people. What can I do to help this man? Not what can I make from this man? Because when I've seen that, I've been successful. And I believe that's the basis of my success. I don't actually prospect anymore.
Fantastic. I really love something you said there, Collie. If you treat people as your friend, then you won't have trouble establishing rapport. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but I think that message rings true, that you don't need to really worry about it if you just treat them as a friend and put their interests ahead of your own. What should a salesperson do when they've had a great meeting with a prospect and feel that a sale could happen, but now the prospect won't return their calls or email?
Well, 2 things you could do. First, you can use humor. You can send an email. One of 2 things has happened. Either your phone is buried under a pile of paperwork, or you can't find your phone at all. So that's why I don't hear from you. And then take it on from them. Or the other thing that I've done in the past with voicemail is maybe on about the 4th voicemail where I'm not getting returned is I say, I can talk to God every day. Why can't I talk to you? Now, as a result of that, somebody actually did pick up the phone and said, well, Collie, it is like God, you can't hear me. And I said, well, I can hear you now. And he laughed, and we ended up doing business together because that's that bit of humor. And the other thing is that people forget about now is to use snail mail. Use a direct mail letter, a handwritten envelope, write the address, handwritten, put a stamp on it. Don't send it through metered mail, and just send them a simple handwritten letter and say, I've been trying to get in touch with you. You know, I know that we have something that can be of value to you. Can I give you a call on Tuesday morning? Now that bit, can I give you a call on Tuesday morning? You phone up Tuesday morning. You get the gatekeeper, and the gatekeeper will ask, can I ask the nature of the call? I can say, well, no, Michael's expecting my call today. We've been in correspondence. So
there you go.
Yeah. So the other thing is that, one of the things, as I say, is, people ask me, when should you give up? And I said, well, it depends who dies first. But really, there is a time that you've got to make a decision and sales managers sometimes get salespeople to flog dead horses and trying to get them to make up and run. Sometimes you've got to admit that the sale is dead and it isn't going to go anywhere. That you're better speaking to someone. Don't waste your time in speaking to someone who's never going to buy. You can spend your time better in finding somebody who will buy.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend newer salespeople do to speed up their success? Because of course they want to get successful faster. Do you have any ideas or suggestions for new salespeople?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I do is I work on an onboarding induction system, and I call it 30, 60, 90 days. And the first thing is that first 30 days, I get them to set targets for themselves, or goals rather, set goals for themselves that's practical, realistic, attainable, measured, known and understood. Once they've set those goals, what's the 30-day goals? The first 30 days goals, I'll say, okay, I want you to build a pipeline of 100 prospects. And I get them actually to work on who's your ideal prospect. What do they look like? Where are you going to find them? And spend your first 100 days finding that and fill the top of your funnel, of your sales funnel, with 100 prospects. Then I take that too, and then those 30 days is that you start making phone calls. Then the next 30 days is you start to get your face-to-face meetings, and your last 90 days you should start to close those sales. And that's worked very well in software, is where people taking that strategy of a 30, and that's the first quarter in sales. And we actually have set targets with companies. I worked with a company in New York, and we set targets for hitting the target at the end of 90 days. And we actually exceeded the target because we have a structure. And very often I see a lot of people, they don't have a structure for inducting new salespeople. And that just comes from my own past experience when I started in sales. And they said, here's a yellow pages, Colin.
Yeah, great example of no structure versus your proven structured process. Wow, Kali, we've learned so much in this conversation, and you've shared a lot of great wisdom. So I have one final question to ask. How important are habits and routines in creating success in sales and in life?
One of the first habits, I believe, is to live a day at a time, live in the now. What's your targets for today? There's a famous football team in England, and they said, you probably know it, or soccer as you would call it in America. They said, how do you hit your sales target? And they said, it's the same as winning the English First Division. And I'm sure in NFL football is the same. It said, you start the season with a bang, you improve in the middle, and finish with a flourish. So one of the things is, set yourself daily targets. One of the things is, I work with sales managers, and I have one of the questions I ask in your sales culture, what's your expectations? And I said, what's your expectations of your salespeople? What do you expect them to do on a daily basis? And then I said I call it norms and value. So what should you normally do during the day, and what value should you add during the day? Now, in some business, you're not going to make a sale every day. The people I'm with today, it's a long sale. But where are you with that sale? And today, one of the greatest things that has brought to us is CRM systems, and where you can look at your sales process and you can ask yourself your question every day. Ask them this question: where am I on this sale, and what do I need to do next to move this forward?
Kali, I have really enjoyed our conversation together, and I'm so appreciative of you taking the time to share much great wisdom with us today. I know a lot of the newer salespeople who frequent my channel are going to get a lot out of this. So thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me, Michael.